Key metros, as you've just been mentioning, Francis, the most hotly contested being Johannesburg. It's had the most number of candidates vying to govern. My colleague Griselda Lewis is at the IEC Centre in Alberton, south of Johannesburg. We're also joined by Neria Hlakoza, who's at the Results Centre in the Northern Cape. But let's start with you, Griselda. Tell us about those latest results on the leaderboard in Gauteng. Herman Mashaba giving percentages, but from what we've heard, it really is not just a sprint, it's a marathon run, and those results could change at any moment.
Well, absolutely. A very good evening to you, Tsepi. So we're still monitoring those results here from Alberton, and certainly we've not yet reached the 40% breach in terms of the number of votes that have been counted pertaining to Gauteng. Let's take a look at the latest now and look at the leaderboard as it stands. Provincially, the African National Congress, securing 90 wards at this particular point. In terms of vote support, what has been counted as far is just over 700,000. And if you look at the second there with the Democratic Alliance, 35 wards with 553,788. The Economic Freedom Fighters at 241,539. But if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you look at number 6, that is certainly what is being watched closely at this particular point. The new kid on the block, which is ActionSA. You know, of course, that ActionSA making some inroads into particular areas here in Johannesburg, for example, like in Soweto as well, at 134,852 at this particular point in terms of vote support. So, Tepiso, what we're looking at this particular point is that we've not yet breached that 40% mark in terms of the votes that have been counted in Gauteng. I also understand that we're only likely to reach about 60% sometime during the course of this evening.
Say, where is it making a big showing? You've mentioned some of those, but the projection is so far that nationally there could be 31 hung councils. Just looking at the Results Centre, how is it performing in places like Ekurhuleni? Tell us a little bit more about just how big a wave or storm they're causing.
Well, Tepiso, the party has made gains in suburbs as well as in the townships, winning wards in Orlando as well as Protea, that's in Soweto, as well as in Zandspruit. So ActionSA's rise as the new kid on the block is a blow for the ANC. It's essentially taking votes from the ANC and some of its strongholds, including in Soweto. So what may have contributed to the decline in support in Soweto, for example, is the ongoing electricity crisis, which has placed the ANC and residents for a very long time now at loggerheads. So it looks like there would need to be some political solution to that particular conundrum. The housing backlog as well has also featured with prominence among the concerns raised by community members.
Griselda, very quickly, do we know what the results will be like just over the next couple of hours?
Well, Tepiso, Gauteng, we've not yet breached 40%, as I said, in terms of vote counting. Just before we came to air, we were at about 39%. So tomorrow we're likely to get a clearer picture. Of course, you'd know that the process includes scanning, double capturing, as well as auditing, a lengthy process that is unlike if you compare to provinces like the Northern Cape, where you'll be crossing to Neria Hlakoza, that has limited voting districts. Also, you'd know that Joburg accounts for about 2.2 million registered voters. So according to the IEC, we're only likely to see about 60% of the picture much later on tonight. But in places like the Midvaal, for example, where the DA is set to retain that municipality, Peter Texera is likely to ascend to be mayor there.
Griselda Lewis, my colleague at the Alberton Civic Centre, the Gauteng Results Centre. As you heard, the Northern Cape has completed about 87% of its result, followed by the Western Cape, we're told, at 58%. Position number 3, Free State at this point. But of course, more detail from the IEC when it holds its presser at about 7 o'clock. Neria Hlakoza is at the IEC Provincial Centre in Kimberley. So let's talk about how far you are as a province. Do you think that you'll be the first province to complete counting votes?
The likelihood is very high, Tepiso, I must tell you, because, I mean, when you remember during the day we're at 73 and now we're just above the 80s. And when we spoke to the IEC, they're also very confident that before we sleep tonight, we will know who will be taking most of the municipalities. But when you look at the numbers right now, we see that the ANC is at least 49.51. We have the DA at 21.41 and the EFF at 8.93. And you know, the important part here is the fact that in 2016, the ANC actually was at 59% and the DA at 32% and the EFF at 7%. So you can see a little growth there for the EFF, of course, and the DA also seeing a little a decrease of some sort. But I think the most important part here is the small parties or the civic movements, for that matter. When you look at the Namakwa civic movement, it was formed just in March this year, and we're seeing it getting something like 1.77. And these movements were formed, of course, by residents in response to the lack of service delivery across the Northern Cape. One would have thought, of course, then that would mean that it would affect the numbers of the ANC, but it's still topping the list for now. But they're saying the numbers are unlikely to change, but it's very early to call this for now, because as counting continues, numbers keep changing and changing. What I can tell you right now is that we're waiting for one of the districts. We're waiting for the Joe Morolong municipality to finish counting. We were told that there was, in fact, load shedding in that area, which disturbed counting. So we're waiting for that. And we will hear also from our own IEC in terms of what will be the plan with regards to that. I think, Tepiso, also as we're speaking about these forums that are formed by the communities, you must remember that we've moved from just 42 forums or independent candidates, for that matter. We skyrocketed to 77 in these elections. So it's interesting to see them grow and actually form part of, or actually getting numbers. But I think the most worrying party right now in the Northern Cape is COPE. COPE is exactly at 0.62. So you can see the decrease there by COPE. It's even, I mean, even parties or community parties or smaller parties are even making headway and beating COPE. And I think the VF Plus, it's another party that we must be looking at right now. And when we're speaking to analysts earlier, they're saying it could be that the VF Plus has taken some of the numbers from DA people, or the DA, some former DA members have moved to a VF Plus. So it's a touch and go right now, honestly. Anything can change. But one thing for sure is that by the end of tonight, according to the IEC in the Northern Cape, we will have the final numbers and we will know how far the ANC is. We will see if the 59 that they had in 2016, will they still have it now?
All right, thank you very much for that, Neria. Neria Hlakoza saying that counting there pretty much at its pinnacle, and it looks highly likely that the Northern Cape will be the first province to call its results at 100%.